Hi, welcome back, everybody. This week, I wanted to actually give you a little different kind of episode because I have some exciting news. I've put together an ebook for compulsive rumination, and this ebook is for folks who actually have had some experience with treatment for OCD, whether that is a self-directed class, maybe that you did online, or if you've gone to some support groups and have learned about ERP, or maybe you've worked with a specialist. So the ebook really focuses on breaking down and explaining, what is a rumination, what is a compulsion, what is compulsive rumination, getting into some pieces of the brain that we know are being affected when we are actually in states of rumination, and then really looking at what are some kind of tips and ways to treat compulsive rumination. And then there's a 30-day journal that is offered. So I wanted to take this episode and this time to actually talk a little bit about some of the kind of top things that happen in rumination, and also share with you some of the journal prompts that will be included. So some of the things that happens when we ruminate is that we often, let's say, even if we have a real event that took place, or maybe it is not a real event, but something just triggered us, we often tend to go into our heads and try to figure things out. And the thing is that when somebody without OCD thinks more about something and tries to figure things out, they actually get more clarity the more questions they ask. In compulsive rumination, we don't often get that clarity. We actually get more confused. We have more questions. And really, kind of one way I'd like you to think about it is kind of like we're starting to have this doubt story in our heads, right? So something happened, whether it's a real event or just a trigger, and now we go in our heads and we start to have this perpetual doubt. And the more we're doubting, the more we're creating these bigger stories, and the more we're really kind of reinforcing in our minds to continue to search for evidence, right? That something maybe is true or isn't true, or happened or didn't happen. Oftentimes, even the act of giving up rumination can be challenging in its own, because sometimes people can feel like, well, if I don't think about this stuff, then what if I miss something? Right. So that now becomes like a justification process that now a person is using to continue to ruminate. But what I want you to, again, to really focus on is that rumination really is our behavioral response to something that we're perceiving as threatening and or dangerous. And what would happen if you even just think about this notion of giving up doubt? If you just like parking lot that process, literally put pause on and say, hold on, let me literally, what happens if I stop going in my head and coming up with all sorts of scenarios and questions and stories that will keep perpetuating the cycle? If I literally step away from that and put that on hold, then what are you going to be left with, right? You might still have uncertainty, but most likely you're probably going to feel better because you're not going to continue to add fuel to the fire of OCD. Instead of continuing to guess and second guess and triple guess and just go down this rabbit hole loop, you can kind of come back and regroup and reground yourself firmly in what you actually do know is going on, right? And so with this ebook, my hope is that this is a place that you can read and kind of really grasp these concepts, and then really take some time to, spend using some of the journal prompts that I've created as ways to kind of guide you and help you along this journey. And the reason I did a 30-day journal is because it really does take, a little bit of time to practice anything new that we're learning, anything, right? So even if you've been really used to always going in your head and figuring things out, thinking about things, reviewing them, mulling them over, replaying scenes, asking the same questions, but in different ways, kind of demanding you have some absolute answer that I have to know this because this is just now becoming a fact in my head. But if you're doing any of that stuff, I invite you to think about what would happen if I literally put all that on hold and tried different strategies. And so taking 30 days to really focus and hone in on this, I think, is a great way to increase self-awareness, and to also kind of observe yourself more. And if you've been following me, I often talk about this, self-awareness, self-observance, are really important aspects of this work. And this is why practicing mindfulness is so important, and really learning how to start to live in a more mindful way, meaning living life by being really present in the moment. And of course, we all at times, go in our heads and think about things that we have to do, or all the other stuff and ways that we might need to show up. Like next week, I have, these certain things at work, or I have this stuff I have to do with my family. Oh yeah, I have to finish, this paperwork, or whatever it is for you. But the fact is that all that stuff is not like it's going to go away. Because if you haven't noticed, even when you finish some of your tasks, guess what? There's more tasks. There's always more of stuff to do. So, I always invite people to say, well, what would it be like if you learn how to practice to kind of step away from that, knowing that there's no shortage of things to do. It will always be there. And you get to it just one day, one step at a time. What would it be like if you could live that way? And so in shining kind of a light on a behavior, or on anything really, when you kind of really focus on something and shine light on it, it naturally increases your self-awareness. And then you can start to observe, what actually happens? What do I do? And when you observe and you reflect, you can also learn, and then you can make different choices. So let me read to you a couple of journal prompts. I have them up here. So one would be, what was the triggering situation? Like, what happened right before you started ruminating? Another prompt is, what was my actual rumination? So very literally, like, what are you actually saying to yourself? What does it sound like? Another one is, how are you actually interrupting rumination? So, you could probably have two mental processes going on. One is this obsession that pops in your head that you can't control. It's usually ego dystonic. It's not connected to your values or sense of self, right? But then right after that, that's the compulsion. Everything after that is now me trying to go in. If I'm in my head about it, I'm trying to figure this out. I'm analyzing, I'm overthinking this. So we need to really interrupt that second process, and really kind of come back to this other place of like, hold on a minute, like, what am I doing right now? I'm engaging in this, kind of doubt story internally, engaging more and more in all these different possibilities and all these doubts. And, what could happen the longer I go down that process and that rabbit hole is that you can get really lost and confused. What's fact from fiction? And then start to question everything. And, and again, that's the OCD giving you a certain internal kind of story about things versus coming back to say, wait a minute, what's actually going on here? So a couple of other prompts would be some things like, what would be a values-based decision, right? If I listen to my OCD and anxiety want me to do X, but if I come back and actually listen to myself and things that actually are important to me, what would I want to do? So those are just some ideas, just for you to know what's included in the journal, and for you to spend the time to actually write it in, and really for 30 days to keep shedding light on this so it can help you break this cycle. Because rumination is really a strong, powerful urge to mentally go and think about things. But one of the things we have to learn is there are times where this kind of analytical thinking process is actually unhelpful, and it's not valuable, and it's actually not giving you anything that you want, and it's not getting you any closer to anywhere you want to go. And also, furthermore, it's riddled with a bazillion doubt, uncertainty, and questions that may or may not even be useful or helpful, and it gets you further away from what actually is in front of you. So that's a compulsive journal, an ebook that will be coming out soon. I will be having a link for pre-orders if you'd like. And I hope you enjoy it. Thanks.